Latest on the Tuas industrial explosion, 3 workers have died and 5 remain in critical condition.
Following the 2016 killing of a Myanmar foreign domestic worker, there will be a review to ensure that such abuse doesn't happen again.
And Singapore is not expected to move out of Phase 3 anytime soon, says Senior Minister of State Janil Puthucheary. Welcome to The Big Story, coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. I'm Olivia Quay.
I'm Haryanto Diman, and you can subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you never miss a single episode. 3 workers have died and 5 remain in critical condition after yesterday's explosion in a Tuas industrial building. 2 other workers who were in the unit across the road have been discharged.
In an update, the Manpower Ministry said today that the 3 casualties haven't been identified given the extensive burns they suffered. Their families will be informed once their identities are confirmed.
Preliminary investigations found that the explosion was caused by the accumulation of potato starch in a confined environment.
Our preliminary investigation reveals that this accident is caused by a combustible dust explosion. Now, the dust in this case is potato starch in powder form, which is one of the material that this particular company used for its product. The dust can be generated during the transfer of these powders, such as from the bag into the mixer. And over time, the dust can accumulate in the environment, especially if the ventilation or the housekeeping is inadequate, especially to reduce the concentration in the air. And when the dust comes into contact with a source of ignition, an explosion will occur, as we see in this accident.
MOM called on other companies dealing with similar materials to review their safety measures to prevent repeat accidents.
Recapping yesterday's events, the workers were taken to hospital with burns following what witnesses said was a very loud explosion. It happened on the premises of a contractor dealing with fire protection systems, and it forced the evacuation of 65 others in the vicinity.
Singapore Civil Defence Force officers were seen tending to the injured workers. Some of the victims had skin peeling from their faces, while others were bleeding from the soles of their feet.
Following a spate of workplace accidents this month, which saw 7 people killed, MOM is adding 300 inspections in high-risk industries.
MOM said on Facebook yesterday that the inspections will continue until mid-March, with a greater focus on tackling work height and safe use of machinery infringements in the construction, manufacturing and marine sectors.
Since mid-December, MOM has conducted 400 inspections at various sites, uncovered 486 contraventions and issuing 7 stop work orders.
Well, later tonight, ST's investigative series Close Up delves into what it calls the migrant burden for Singapore's foreign workers.
Few Singaporeans want to work in industries like construction, yet some foreign workers who are willing to do it have to pay thousands of dollars to get these jobs. Now, we're talking about up to $20,000.
Right, so who is asking for these fees illegally? Well, Close Up investigates this tonight at 8 p.m. Singapore time on the Straits Times' website, Facebook and YouTube platforms.
Company got one safety supervisor. His name is Joy. I paid him around $3,500 in cash. Then I come in Singapore.
சீனிவாசன் வந்து எனக்கு அவ்வளோ பேமெண்ட் கட்டினா தான் எனக்கு அந்த வேலையை தருவோன்னு சொன்னாங்க. அதனால வந்து நான் 7,000 வெளியே கட்டி தான் எனக்கு இந்த வேலைக்கு வரணுங்கிற கட்டாயத்துக்கு நான்
The abuse suffered by Myanmar domestic helper Piang Ngai Don must never happen again.
Manpower Minister Josephine Teo said that to ensure this, the government is reviewing 3 key areas.
Let me be absolutely clear. There is no place for abuse against foreign domestic workers in Singapore. there is simply no place for it. We have been reviewing 3 areas. First, safeguards against abusive employers. Second, the reporting system for doctors. There is a 6-monthly checkup, which is mandatory. All the foreign domestic workers in Singapore must go through it, and compliance rate is high. Doctors also have a duty to report to the police or MOM if they are detecting signs of abuse or distress. And we have made this point explicit in 2017, and we will have to further strengthen this. The third area is to involve the community and partner organizations more so that we have the ability to detect signs of distress quicker and better. This is something that is absolutely important.
Asked if any action will be taken against the doctor who last examined Ms. Piang or others who may have known about the abuse, Law Minister K. Shanmugam said it's difficult to comment as the cases were still before the courts.
He added, though, that regardless of the outcome against the abuser's husband, who's a police officer, the man will face internal disciplinary proceedings. Mr. Shanmugam also described the abuse of Ms. Piang as, quote, evil.
The point I made is that people who seem ordinary are capable of extraordinary evil. And there are 2 pillars in any society to keep evil in check. 1 is education. 2, we need rule of law to keep such evil in check. The law has to come down with full force when the rules are broken.
Separately, a woman who abused her Indonesian maid just 2 weeks into her employment pleaded guilty to 3 charges of voluntarily causing hurt. The helper is only identified in court documents as Miss Yulia.
And the court heard that Ong Si Mien had used a metal bowl and cordless phone to hit Miss Yulia's head. Ong slapped her on a separate occasion, causing her nose to bleed. Ong had also separately refused Miss Yulia's request for transfer. She will be sentenced on March the 4th.
Now, in other news, this was the scene earlier today on the PIE, an accident involving a lorry and a bus that left 12 people injured and caused a major jam during the morning peak hour. Now, the 12 injured were the lorry driver and his 11 passengers. They were conscious when taken to Ng Teng Fong General Hospital. Meanwhile, the bus driver told the Straits Times that none of his around 20 passengers was hurt. Police investigations are ongoing.
In Parliament today, employment for women, seniors and low-wage workers were raised in the second day of the budget debate.
MacPherson SMC MP Tin Pei Ling outlined the plight of seniors who want to work but struggle to secure suitable and adequate employment. She also raised the need to digitally empower more women to address the pressing digital talent shortage worldwide and generate greater economic growth.
Now, various female members echoed the need for inclusive employment. Jurong GRC MP Rahayu Mazam expanded on women's contribution to the workforce, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, while juggling their caregiving roles.
There are many other aspects of this budget that would have a great impact on women. Women care about the environment too, and certainly look forward to further details of the Singapore Green Plan. Women care about their jobs and the economy and would be keen to see the rollout of the SG United Jobs and Skills Package and the Jobs Growth Incentive. And there is a lot more to be done. We also need to remain committed to our long-term priorities and, amongst other things, continue to look at areas where we can address gender bias and disparity between men and women. We are not done building this nation and will have to carry on our efforts to build a fair and just society for all. And I have no doubt the women in Singapore will stand tall alongside the men, doing their part for this country.
Nominated MP Raj Joshua Thomas called for laws requiring building owners to provide proper rest areas for outsourced workers to be implemented sooner.
This is one of several measures that Mr. Thomas suggested to ensure proper working conditions for cleaners, security officers and landscape maintenance workers.
I have thus proposed 3 measures that build on existing mechanisms and/or positions already announced by the government. Legislation making the provision of rest areas for outsourced workers mandatory, the regularization of security officer working hours in the security officer's PWM, and the promulgation of a consolidated tripartite advisory for buyers of outsourced services. By my estimates, based on publicly available data, sir, these measures will apply to and benefit around 120,000 workers.
Meanwhile, non-constituency MP and Progress Singapore Party Chairman Leong Man Wai told Parliament that a monthly levy of $1,200 should be imposed on all employment pass holders immediately to level the playing field between Singaporeans and foreigners.
This will even out what Mr. Leong called the wage disadvantage against locals, as foreigners don't have to contribute to CPF.
The $1,200 amount is based on the employer's contribution and part of the employee's contribution. This is estimated to generate new operating revenue of $2.7 billion per annum. If the government needs more revenue, this is a good option to consider. This levy will differentiate the true foreign talents who are high salaried and less affected by the $1,200 levy from the foreign talents who are simply cheap labor that compete unfairly with our Singaporeans and whom our economy has become overly dependent on.
Minister of State for Manpower Gan Xiao Huang remarked that a blanket levy on EP holders is, quote, a signal to foreign investors that Singapore does not quite welcome them to bring in their own talent.
Mr. Leong then clarified that PSP is in favor of employing foreign talent, but there needs to be a rebalance that is going too slowly.
To that, Transport Minister Ong Ye Kung said Singapore is now a regional and international hub which opens up competition for jobs.
We are now a regional and international hub, are now able to take up international roles overseas in other financial centers around the world and then holding our own. But competition is tougher. But of course, we always wish there's a menu that say we get all the jobs, but yet no competition. But I'm sorry, there's no such menu. The menu is open up more competition, but we build capabilities and we can seize more opportunities. All this we've gone through during the debate on the motion, on the President's address. So I'm a little bit disturbed when I hear Mr. Leong grandstanding, saying that all this building up, growing our own timber, localization, building our own talent is not in MAS's KPI. I think that is grossly unfair and ignores everything that we have discussed earlier.
Senior Minister of State for Health Janil Puthucheary told Parliament that Singapore is not expected to exit Phase 3 anytime soon. He was responding to MP Yip Hon Weng, who'd asked about Singapore's plans to ease out of Phase 3, as well as the criteria that must be fulfilled for Phase 3 restrictions to be lifted.
Well, Dr. Janil said that Phase 3 will last until there's evidence on vaccine effectiveness in preventing future outbreaks. He also said a substantial proportion of the population must be vaccinated. The rest of the world must have the virus under control as well.
While the outbreaks in several countries have abated in recent weeks, we need to remain vigilant. We will continue to find ways to allow our economy and our society to further reopen in a safe way. But given the dynamic situation here and around the world, we will need to adjust our safe management measures from time to time. We do not expect to move out of Phase 3 anytime soon. The vaccines approved in Singapore have been shown to be effective in providing protection against the COVID-19 virus. We are awaiting more evidence about how effective they will be about preventing transmission. We are also closely monitoring their effectiveness against new viral variants. Meanwhile, our best strategy is to continue to be disciplined about safe management measures and achieve a high level of vaccination within our population to boost our collective immunity.
Meanwhile, the Health Ministry confirmed 10 new COVID-19 cases today, including 2 in the community.
The remaining 8 imported cases had already been placed on stay-home notice upon arrival in Singapore.
Minister of State for National Development Tan Kiat Hao said for now Singapore will not implement tiered pricing for travellers serving their SHN at dedicated facilities.
But he also said the ministry is studying how to provide these travellers with more options to meet their preferences and budgets without compromising safety.
The system has served about 190,000 travellers since its formation. As travellers cannot choose their SDF and the cost structure is largely similar, a standard fee is charged regardless of the SDF that they are assigned to.
Now, quick look at other local headlines. The 4 British nationals who were sentenced yesterday for COVID-19 breaches on Lazarus Island are permanently banned from working here. The Manpower Ministry has revoked their work passes.
And tickets for the Singapore Tennis Open semi-finals and finals this weekend sold out less than a day after organisers announced that 250 fans will be allowed to attend each day. Spectators must undergo a mandatory antigen rapid test at the venue, which will take about 30 minutes. They will only be allowed entry into the OCBC arena after a negative result.
Time for some weekend picks with our colleagues at Live. Now, have you used your SingaporeRediscovers vouchers, Olivia?
I have not even touched it, but I know you have used almost half of it, right?
Yeah. So I've used it for a boat trip down Boat Quay, that area.
Oh, nice.
As well as to pay part of my staycation during Christmas.
Great. Well, there are over 400 options where you can use your vouchers, with more being added each month. If you have no idea where you're going to spend your remaining or all of your credits on, travel correspondent Clara Locke is here to share some of the best deals she has found. So Clara, only Singaporeans 18 years old and above were eligible for these vouchers. So for families like me actually who have children below 18 years old, what are the best deals what are the best ways they can use these vouchers?
So all adults can buy up to 6 tickets for family members aged up to 18 years old with a subsidy of $10 per ticket. So I would say if you're going as a family, it's great if you can find attractions where the child ticket costs $10 or as close to $10 as possible, because then you're getting it for close to nothing. And some attractions have rolled out deals in conjunction with the SRV scheme. So for example, the Singapore Flyer, child tickets cost $10 and tickets for seniors 60 and above also cost $10, and that's less than half of what they used to cost. So if you're going as a family, only the adults pay full price and then everyone else gets a great discount. And there are lots of attractions with similar prices. Last week I was at the Red Dot Design Museum at Marina Bay, and I feel like that's one of the best deals you can get on SRV, because you get a great subsidy to go into the museum, and then on top of that you get credits that you can spend at the museum cafe and gift shop. So you get $10 on weekdays, and then you get $11 on off-peak days, which is Tuesdays to Thursdays, and these vouchers are even stackable.
Wow, so those are activities to do, right? What about staycations? Because these are getting more popular these days because we can travel, and I mean I've been on a staycation as well. So what are the best deals out there for staycations, Clara?
Yeah, so staycations have been super popular in the past 6 to 12 months, and actually if you've been thinking of one, there's really no better time to go than now, because hotels are bundling all these freebies like meal credits, late checkouts, discounts, and so I think you can look for staycations that you top up about $200 to $350 on top of your SRVs, and then you expect to get a whole bunch of these freebies thrown in. And so one example is Fullerton Hotel, where for $338 you get to stay in a premium courtyard room, and it comes with breakfast, late checkout on Sundays to Thursdays. You get complimentary tours, you get a Fullerton bear that you can bring home.
Right, okay, so we've heard from Clara, right, that staycations and attractions are probably your best value for money options. But Clara, what if I just want to, use the vouchers for a good meal? Can I do that?
Yeah, so many people have asked me this question. Can I use my SRV for food? So technically, the SRV is only meant for attractions, tours, and hotel stays. But you can you can sign up for tours where you can have a good meal and you can have a drink if that's what you're into. So for example, there's this tour called Kopi and Cha Bitter Brews with a Story, and that includes a bak kut teh lunch, and then you go on a tour where you learn about different kinds of traditional tea and coffee. You sample all these different brews and then you hear the stories behind them. For instance, why Singapore's labourers used to drink kopi with butter instead of milk and sugar as many people have it nowadays. There are tours that you can take to distilleries, learn about gin, walk around Chinatown, taste traditional snacks, there's hawker food, and of course, if you want to learn something new and go on a tour as well, and then have a great meal to cap it off, you can sign up for a cooking class, which I think is a great way to spend the vouchers. Because, we do that all the time overseas, but we don't really think of doing a cooking class in Singapore. But for instance, there's a Thai cooking class where you visit a Thai supermarket, you learn about the imported Thai produce that we can get here, and then together with the guide, you cook tom yum soup, papaya salad, and this Thai coconut pudding dessert called kanum taco. And so, it's a great way to learn about this side of Singapore that maybe you would otherwise never see.
For more tips on how to use your Singapore Rediscovers vouchers, read Clara's story on straitstimes.com. And remember, the vouchers will expire on June 30th.
Now let's talk about a movie that stars two acclaimed, much-loved actors, Stanley Tucci and Oscar winner Colin Firth. Now they play a couple in Supernova. Tucci's character has early onset dementia, and how each man comes to terms with that during this road trip they decide to go on.
Now, Haryanto, I really want to catch this one. Our film correspondent John Louis has already seen Supernova. So John, and he gave it a 5-star rating actually. So John, it's a story about dementia. There have been many films about this particular topic though. How does this one compare or even differ from the previous movies that cover dementia?
Yeah, like you said, lately there's been a spate of movies with dementia as an angle in it. Maybe it's because everyone's getting older, I don't know. But even like Anthony Chen's Wet Season, right? You have a very strong character in the granddad who has dementia. But here, the dementia is not like a test of character, a test of soul for the protagonist, the main character. Here, the person with dementia is a real talking, still mentally fit person. So they engage in a series of very dramatic encounters, you might say.
Right. And I know Olivia is a big fan of Stanley Tucci, and you mentioned it right earlier on as well, and you're an even bigger fan of Colin Firth. So John, they are well known in the acting scene and they are good friends as well in real life. Do you think their close friendship helped them portray these roles as partners with more nuance?
Yeah, they have great chemistry. They are so relaxed. They come across as a couple who've been together for decades. It's in a lot of films, sometimes you look at the two of them and they don't seem to be talking to each other. They seem to be talking at each other for the sake of the audience, or looking at the audience to one side. But here you get the feeling that they're completely comfortable. They can do all kinds of things, including fart in front of each other and be fine with it.
Well, thanks for that, John. That was film correspondent John Louis.
Now, I must admit, I don't have breakfast in the morning, but I do know that one of the best breads you can have in Singapore are those made by hand instead of, those churned out by machines.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Let's bring in ST Food Online editor Heidi Khoo to tell us all about Jie Bakery, which makes its bread from scratch every single day. So Heidi, how does Jie Bakery's handmade bread differ from those that I can buy from the franchises?
Well, I think, these days, most bakeries sell really good bread, but at Jie Bakery, the bread is outstanding. I didn't quite expect it to be of that quality, but they do supply to coffee and toast places, and I can see why people take the supply from them because it's so fine. The bread, when you eat it fresh, is so soft and so tender, and if you get there at the right time, I think like 11:15 or 4:30 when the fresh is hot right off the oven and it's still warm, it's really something special. And if you take it home, if you toast it, the texture changes and it's I think it even better because it's almost like it's crispy. Yeah, provided you don't over toast it. You take a bite of it and then it's crispy and then it like melts in your mouth. And it's so amazing. I couldn't get enough of it. Yeah, very dangerous bread.
What are some of your favorites then, Hedy?
Okay, they have, in recent times, they started offering breads with fillings. So they have like a curry potato bun. They have, I think, a chicken ham and cheese bun. But basically, all these buns, they even have a sambal bun. So most of it, the filling, they don't do it themselves, but it doesn't really matter because everything goes so well together. The filling and then the soft, fluffy bread, that's fresh. And they don't encourage you to keep the bread too long. They encourage you to consume it within a day, especially for the buns with the filling because they don't use any preservatives. But for me, I mean, these buns with fillings are nice, but I still really have a soft spot for the traditional brown bread. And they had a great idea of making a miniature version instead of the gigantic loaves. So it's better for most people, for small families or couples or even people living alone. So it's just like $170 for 8 miniature slices, and you can easily finish it. So for that, I think you can keep it up to 3 days. If you put it in the fridge, you can keep for about a week. And I bought an extra loaf and I forgot about it. And a week later, I tried it out and it's amazing.
Wow, I must say I really love bread, so I am going to check that out. Well, thank you so much, Hedy. That was ST Food Online editor Hedy Koo. You can find Thie Bakery at 123 Upper Paya Lebar Road. You can also check out the Friday pages in tomorrow's live section for more ideas on what you can do this weekend.
Yep, for more news and videos, visit straitstimes.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below.
Once again, I'm Haryanto Diman with Olivia Quay. Join us tomorrow for more stories on The Big Story.